You're listening to Mentoring Developers. When you cater lunches, you obviously are spending money, and the company expects everybody to eat together. Now, could be dangerous because people eat different things. They need variety. They need to just be themselves. They need to, just have personal time. And you're literally robbing them of their personal time by just creating this sort of uniformity. Everybody eats the same food and they sit at the same table. So the idea that you'll become great friends, and if you become great friends, you'll communicate better, and if you communicate better, you'll develop faster, and then, the company will benefit. This is so bizarre in my opinion, because as you're saying, people need to get out, and sometimes you want to eat something different. Maybe you don't share the culinary tastes with your teammates, right? And I've seen it happen. It's craziness. And if you imagine if you didn't want to do that. And I haven't been in this situation, but I can imagine if I was the odd one that wanted to do something different, then I'm just going to stick out.
True. And everybody will look at you and say like, oh, this is the weirdo that doesn't like us and that doesn't sit with us and whatever, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't believe in team spirit and team building.
Yeah. I mean, as you said, like also the overall goal is like, so people really like communicate better, talk better, so they would do, again, more work better, right, in theory. So I think like, it's not like a genuine like idea. It's always like to get something extra for the company instead of like giving something nice for the employee, right? So let's say if you wanted to truly be nice for the employee, you will say like, you cannot work after 5. You have to go home and have a life, right? Instead, we're having like also like basically they have this issue where people like work 24 hours and all these perks like make it even worse. So for example, when I'm looking at the job, like there will be like the career section, right? Why it's awesome to work at us. And you have like this massive wall of stuff that you're going to get. I'm like, dude, give me my money. I will work for you. And I don't care about having a pool, free food, free drinks. If you give me money, I'll pay it for myself and I can afford to eat. I don't need all this stuff, this fluff around me just to be at the company longer, right?
I think this is probably very appealing to new college grads. If you just graduated, you don't have any money, you're concerned about food, because in college, you're like, oh, I don't know if I can eat well. Now all of a sudden you can eat good meals and you don't have to pay for it, but you're not thinking that perhaps they're not paying you as much as they could because they are calculating the cost of your food in their in your compensation. So
right.
it all evens out in favor of your employer in the end, right? So don't be swayed by that. If you're looking for a job, don't be swayed by these perks. However, I empathize with you if this does sway you, because I have been there where money can be tight and some of these perks seem just too good to pass up.
Well, I think you kind of hit on the head, Arslan. I mean, it's like, I think it's just different for different folks. Like, I mean, I don't want to speak for all three of us, but David kind of very articulately expressed kind of my perspective on these things too, where it's something where it's like, I primarily look at it as to say, okay, what's the work? What's the team? How much am I getting paid? Kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And then you look at that just from a benefits kind of package perspective and say, okay, this in fact will be worth more than the hassle that it will cause in my life, right? Is just to say that it's almost just kind of a sum. But there is something in Arslan, you kind of mentioned this too. It's like different people at different times of their lives might truly enjoy some of these perks. I mean, for me, they're almost irrelevant. But I think for other people, and again, and I don't think any one of the three of us are really saying this, but it's like, I'm just trying to say like, okay, this is my perspective on these types of things, but there's other people that may feel totally different, and so in that way, I think, say for instance, like there's probably two sides of the spectrum of this too, like Google, right, offering free lunches, sure, in a very abstract way, it probably factors into people's compensation, but Google pays pretty well overall, and their lunches are pretty spectacular from what I understand. That probably doesn't actually cost anybody anything truly from like their annual salaries perspective. It's just something to help them, compete against maybe other, firms of similar size and caliber that want to poach their developers. But I think in another place, it might be exactly to your guys' point, is to saying like, hey, if you really add all these add-ups together, wouldn't it just be better to pay people slightly better wage and allow them to make these choices for themselves? So it's like, I think in some ways it can be a bit of a schizophrenic situation where some companies really do operate under their own interest, whereas some other companies are really doing it just to stay marketable and competitive in the recruitment space.
Right. I mean, I had a situation where, like, I said, like, I would like to get this amount of money for the job that I am going to do here. And I also used the perks as an argument to give me less. And I said to the guys, like, okay, you know what? I don't care about this, and that. Just give me, like, I don't know, 2,000 extra, and I'm going to be happy. And, you know, there was like this, like, what's happening? Why this guy doesn't like, you know, our free food or our pool or like laundry, like service or whatever, right? And they were like scratching their heads. It's like, what's happening? I'm like, dude, I'm too old for this stuff. I'm sorry.
This is where when you have a monoculture, I keep talking about this, when you have 20 people that are all the same. They hire people exactly like them. So it's a shock for them when they see somebody who thinks differently. You know, people have different backgrounds. They come from they take different journeys in life. And you're in a place, you're completely different. Internally, deep down, you're different from me and from Ed and from everybody else. So for me to expect that you to have my values and care about things I care about, that's childish, right? That's just immaturity. And the problem I see in the startup world a lot is that a lot of people they haven't reached the stage of maturity where they understand that people are different, and it's okay. It's a good thing to have differences because it actually enhances your team, and it builds a better team if you come from different angles and then you find the common ground, which is great. Mm-hmm. Instead of everybody all the same, they all dress the same, they all eat the same food, obviously right. Because they're catering lunches, and they just do everything the same way, and that's a great team. That's not a great team. That's a terrible team, because then you're going to build a product that's going to be skewed. If you're building a product, then it will be skewed towards that demographic, and you'll exclude everybody else.
Right. And one of the other thing is, like, for example, like I always had like the opportunity to work with teams where there's like more women than men, and this is also something very cool when you have like a mixed environment, when you have like both sides, and so you always have a different perspective on some issues, right, that you will not otherwise like.
Thank you so much for listening.
For show notes and transcripts, visit us at mentoringdevelopers.com.
Like, even consider.